I used to think that if I followed the rules, if I did everything right, then one day my parents would finally be proud of me. I believed that if I racked up good grades, landed a respectable job, and found a partner who loved me, I'd earn their admiration, the same look of pride they always gave my brother, Ethan. But life is a cool way of showing you the truth. Some people will never cheer for you, no matter how loud or often you clap for them. The morning after Jordan asked me to marry him felt like something out of fairy tale. He proposed in the botanical garden, just the two of us, standing beneath a delicate arch of white roses in full bloom. I burst into tears. He chuckled nervously. When I said yes, it felt like my soul cracked open in the best way. For the first time, it felt like I was stepping into my own story, not one cast in the long shadow of Ethan's achievements or my parents' lofty ideals. Just mine. The first person I called was my mother. I was still breathless, giddy with joy. She answered after the third ring. "Hi, Mom. I have something to tell you. Jordan proposed last night." There was silence. Not even the pause I had imagined would come before a squeal or an excited gasp. "Oh," she said, in a voice as flat as a closed door. "So, you're engaged? That's nice." Nice. The word landed in my chest like a stone tossed in still water. I tried to keep the energy alive, to cover up the void left by her lackluster response. "We're putting together an engagement party in 3 weeks. We'd really love it if you and Dad could come. Jordan's parents are flying in from Oregon. I already booked a little place near our apartment." There was another stretch of silence. "Well," she finally replied, 3 weeks from now might be tough. Ethan's company is hosting a celebration in Chicago for his promotion that weekend. We've already got the tickets." I actually let out a small laugh, assuming she must be joking. "You're serious?" I asked. "Sweetheart," she replied, her voice calm, like I was the one being unreasonable. "This is a huge moment for Ethan. Regional manager at 28. That's not something that happens every day." I wanted to scream. "Mom, I just got engaged. Isn't that a huge moment too?" But she kept going, cool and composed. "You've always been independent. I figured you'd understand. We'll have dinner with you another time." I ended the call and sat in the kitchen, numb. Jordan walked in, took one look at my face, and didn't say a word. He just wrapped his arms around me. And I let him hold me, because I didn't have the words for the ache inside. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I moved through it like a stranger in my own life. How could my parents treat my engagement like a scheduling nuisance? Like a dentist appointment they forgot to cancel? And yet, deep down, I wasn't shocked. Disappointed, yes, but not surprised. Ethan had always been a shining star. When he barely scraped by with a C+ in high school chemistry, Dad blamed the teacher. When I got an A-, I got a lecture on how I shouldn't settle. When Ethan totaled his second car, Mom just sighed and said, "Boys will be boys." But when I accidentally reversed into a pole in college, I was reckless, irresponsible, immature. He was praised. I was pushed. Even now, the house still looked like a museum dedicated to Ethan's glory. His high school awards lined the hallway. His graduation portraits dominated the living room walls. My pictures? Maybe 2, tucked behind outdated magazines on a dusty shelf. It was like I was always there, not the favorite, not even close. Still, a part of me had clung to the fantasy that this moment, this celebration of love and commitment, would be different. That this time, they'd show up, that I'd matter. But once again, they chose Ethan. The days leading up to the engagement party felt dreamlike. Jordan's parents were nothing but warm and excited. They called just to check in, to see if I needed help with anything. My closest friends poured their hearts into the preparations, choosing decorations, picking flowers, even surprising me with a stunning dress I never could have bought for myself. The people who truly cared made sure I felt it. Their presence, their warmth, the way they showed up, it reminded me I was loved. But those who didn't care, they stayed silent. No messages, no flowers, not even a half-hearted text on the day that meant so much to me. The night of the engagement party finally came. I stood near the entrance of the venue, watching the familiar faces arrive, glowing with joy and excitement. Everyone looked radiant. Jordan kept squeezing my hand, whispering that I was surrounded by love. And I was. But still, I kept glancing toward the doors, holding onto some fragile, foolish hope that maybe, just maybe, my parents would walk through them at the last second. They never did. Instead, I got a notification on Facebook. I'd been tagged in a photo. It was a picture of my mom and dad, faces lit with laughter, champagne flutes raised, standing proudly beside Ethan beneath a sparkling banner that read, "Congrats, regional rock star." The caption stung more than the image. So proud of our boy. Wouldn't miss this for the world. I read it again and again, hoping it might somehow shift, that maybe I'd misread it. But the words stayed the same. That's when something inside me finally gave out. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even sorrow. It was colder than that. A hollow, quiet clarity that all those years of trying to earn their love had been in vain. I had confused emotional neglect for discipline. I had convinced myself that favoritism was fairness in disguise. That night, I smiled for every photo. I danced until my legs could barely carry me. I laughed, not because I was happy, but because I had stopped waiting for happiness to come from people who never knew how to give it. And when the night was over, when the guests had all gone home and Jordan kissed me goodnight, I sat alone on the edge of our bed. I looked down at the engagement ring on my finger and realized something profound. My parents had never truly been part of my story. Not really. They only paid attention when Ethan's name was printed on the page. But this chapter? This one was mine. And I had a plan. Not to hurt them. Not to lash out. But to step into the light they never thought I deserved. To show them, without words, what they lost when they chose to look past me. I wasn't going to beg for love anymore. I was going to build a life so full, so rich, that their absence would feel irrelevant. But first, I had one final gesture to make, something they'd never be able to forget. 2 months after the party, we mailed out the wedding invitations. Jordan and I had chosen a peaceful spring ceremony by the coast, a venue where the breeze carried the scent of salt and the sound of waves felt like a lullaby. Every detail reflected who we were, steady, gentle, rooted in quiet love. I sent an invitation to my parents, too, not because I expected them to attend, but because I wanted them to know the door was still open, that there was a seat if they ever chose to take it. They never responded. No RSVP. No message. Just silence, as if the envelope had vanished into thin air. I told myself not to take it personally, to keep moving forward. But I couldn't help the way my heart jumped each time the mailbox clanged. Even Jordan noticed how I stiffened whenever I sorted through the letters. I kept insisting I was fine, that I had made peace with their absence. But peace doesn't erase away an empty chair echoes through your soul. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, I got a call from Ethan. He almost never called unless it was for some family update or because our parents had nudged him to. His voice was casual, like we'd just spoken the day before. "Hey," he said, "Mom told me about the wedding. She doesn't think she and Dad can make it." I swallowed the sharp edge of sarcasm. "Yeah, I figured." He continued, like he was offering an explanation that would somehow soften the blow. "They've just been really tied up. Dad's trying to wrap things up before his early retirement, and Mom's been helping him get everything in order. It's not personal." "Is it not?" I asked softly. "Then why does it feel like they've skipped everything that's mattered to me?" Silence. "They flew across the country to celebrate your promotion, Ethan, but they couldn't even drive 2 hours for my engagement. And now they're missing my wedding. At some point, this stops looking like bad timing and starts looking like a choice." He let out a sigh. "I don't know what to say. You've always seemed like you had it under control, like you didn't need anyone." And that's when it hit me. He wasn't entirely wrong. I had carried everything on my own shoulders. The loneliness, the comparisons, the disappointments. I had armored myself with independence, believing that if I could just prove I was capable enough, maybe they'd see me, maybe they'd be proud. But I finally understood I didn't need to be seen by people who refused to look. I had made it far too convenient for them to overlook me. I stayed quiet, kept my hurt folded up in silence. But something shifted. Just days before the wedding, I finally found the courage to speak. I published a letter on my private blog, not as an act of vengeance, but as a release. I wasn't trying to shame anyone. I simply told my truth. I wrote about what it was like growing up in the shadow of a brother who could do no wrong. About how often I had clapped for other people's milestones, even when my own were dismissed like background noise. I described what it felt like to reach a moment of true happiness, only to realize the ones who should have celebrated first were the last to notice. I didn't name names. I didn't assign blame. But anyone reading it would understand the ache behind the words. And then, something unexpected happened. People read it. Then they shared it. Soon, messages started pouring in. Friends, distant acquaintances, even people I hadn't spoken to since high school. They wrote about their own stories, being the forgotten child, the quiet achiever, the one who carried the weight while others were praised just for showing up. Turns out, invisibility is more common than we admit. I hadn't intended for it to reach beyond my circle, but it did. And oddly, that made me feel less alone. A week later, on our wedding day, Jordan and I stood beneath a blooming archway. The sun was gentle, the breeze carried laughter, and we held hands like anchors in the tide. His parents cried openly. My friends were radiant, glowing with joy. And as I looked around, every seat was taken, except for two, the ones reserved for my parents. But this time, I didn't feel hollow. I didn't feel lesser. Because just a few rows away, someone I hadn't seen in years was sitting there with misty eyes. My Aunt Claire. After the ceremony, she came up and wrapped me in a hug. "I read what you wrote," she murmured. "And I want you to know you were never invisible to me. I should have told you that a long time ago." Her words filled a part of me I hadn't realized was still empty. Later that evening, while Jordan and I swayed under a sky lit by fairy lights and stars, my phone buzzed in my clutch. It was a message from my mother. "We read your post. We didn't know that's how you felt. Maybe we should have. Maybe we didn't do right by you." Another message followed a few minutes later. "We're not ready to talk, but we're listening." It wasn't a full apology. Not yet. But it was something. A small fracture in the wall I had spent a lifetime trying to climb. And here's the thing. I realized I no longer needed to climb it. This chapter wasn't about making them understand. It wasn't about proving my worth or chasing a kind of love they were never able to give. It was about finally living as though I didn't need permission to be whole. The real twist wasn't that they finally heard me. It's that I had already stopped needing their applause. And in letting go, I found peace.